elderly couple lived in a tent in the snow until a secret from the past changed their lives. Dorothy felt the biting cold cut through her layers of clothing as she hugged her husband inside the makeshift tent. For 3 weeks, they had been living there in the parking lot of the abandoned gas station, hiding from the authorities who might separate them into different shelters. It was then that Harold picked up the yellowed envelope he kept in the inner pocket of his blue coat once again. His hands trembled, not just from the cold but from the emotion those papers always stirred in him. Dorothy noticed the familiar gesture and sighed. "Harold, why won't you tell me what's in that envelope?" she asked for the 100th time. He just shook his head as he always did. The silence between them had stretched on for days. Dorothy knew her husband was hiding something important, but she never imagined that secret would completely change their lives. The sound of a car approaching made the two shrink even further inside the tent. It was Mildred, the landowner, a 50-year-old woman who had discovered their presence the day before. Dorothy prepared for another attempt at eviction. "Mr. Harold?" Mildred's voice trembled as she approached the tent. He looked up, confused. How did she know his name? Are you Harold Mitchell, the owner of the Green Mountain Inn?" The yellowed envelope fell from Harold's trembling hands. Dorothy looked from her husband to the woman, understanding nothing. Green Mountain Inn? What was this story? "My God, I knew you when I was a child," Mildred continued, her eyes wide. "My father was a vegetable supplier for your inn. You disappeared from town 40 years ago." Dorothy felt the world spin. 40 years. But she had been married to Harold for 15 years, and he had always said he worked his whole life as a factory worker. "You're confusing him with someone else?" Dorothy tried to protect her husband. "My Harold never owned any inn." "No, ma'am, I'm sure. The Green Mountain Inn was on the mountain road, where there's only brush now. You had a family, a wife, and children." Mildred's words echoed like thunder. Dorothy looked at Harold, who was as pale as the snow around them. Wife and children. What wife and children? "Harold, what is she talking about?" He lowered his head, unable to meet his wife's gaze. The envelope on the ground seemed to scream secrets he had kept for 15 years of marriage. "Mildred, please," he murmured. "Mr. Harold, the inn property is still in your name. It was never sold. It's abandoned, but legally it's still yours." Dorothy felt a mix of anger and confusion take hold of her heart. How could it still be his? If Harold owned property, why were they living in miserable conditions? "I need explanations," Dorothy said, her voice firm despite the tremor. Harold finally picked up the envelope from the ground and opened it with trembling fingers. Old documents appeared, some with official stamps. Dorothy recognized a property deed in her husband's name. "Why did you lie to me?" she asked, feeling the tears freeze on her face. "I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you," Harold replied weakly. "Didn't tell me you had a family before me. Didn't tell me you owned property. Didn't tell me your whole life was a lie." The argument was interrupted by the arrival of another car. A man of about 50 got out of the vehicle and walked toward them with firm steps. His face resembled Harold's, only younger. "Dad?" The man's voice was heavy with emotion. "Mildred called me. She said you were here." Dorothy looked from one to the other, trying to process the information. "Dad? Harold had a son." "Raymond," Harold whispered. 40 years, Dad. 40 years without knowing if you were alive or dead." The eldest son of Harold looked at Dorothy with curiosity, mixed with resentment. She realized she was not welcome at this reunion. "This is Dorothy, my wife," Harold introduced timidly. "Wife?" Raymond laughed bitterly. "You had the courage to get married again after abandoning Mom with 3 small children?" Dorothy felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. 3 small children? Harold abandoned an entire family? "Raymond, things weren't quite like that," Harold tried to explain. "Weren't like what, Dad? You fled in the middle of the night without even leaving a note. Mom cried every day until the day she passed." The word "passed" echoed painfully. Dorothy realized Harold's first wife had died, and that partly explained why he was free to marry again. "I tried to keep the inn running," Raymond continued, his voice full of hurt. "I tried for 5 years. I broke my life trying to save what you abandoned." "Son, Don't call me son. Fathers don't abandon children." Dorothy watched the scene with a broken heart. On one hand, she felt sorry for her husband, who clearly carried immense pain. On the other, she was shocked by the lies she had lived with for 15 years. "Mr. Raymond," Mildred intervened, "perhaps this isn't the best place to talk. It's very cold here." "You're right. Let's go into town. I need to settle the property situation once and for all," Raymond said, determined. "Settle how?" Harold asked, worried. "By selling. An interested buyer has appeared. With the money, I can pay off the debts I accumulated trying to keep everything running after you disappeared." Dorothy saw the desperation in her husband's eyes. That property meant something very important to him, even after 40 years. "And if I don't want to sell?" Harold asked softly. "Don't want to?" Raymond exploded. "You don't have the right to want anything. You abandoned everything. You left 3 children without a father. You left a sick woman alone. You lost the right to an opinion 40 years ago." "Raymond, please, no. Now you will sign the sale papers and at least once in your life do something right for this family." Dorothy intervened for the first time. "Excuse me, but he has been my husband for 15 years. Any decision about property affects me too." Raymond looked at her with disdain. "You married a man who abandoned 3 children. What does that say about your character?" "I didn't know any of this," Dorothy replied, hurt. "How didn't you know? 15 years married and you never asked about his past." "I did ask, but he always said he had no family, that he was an orphan." The silence that followed was cutting. Even Mildred seemed embarrassed by the revelation. "An orphan?" Raymond laughed bitterly. "He had 3 children who adored him. He had a wife who would have given her life for him. He had a family that depended on him." "Enough, Raymond," Harold finally found his voice. "You don't know why I left. Then tell us. 40 years later, tell us why you abandoned us." Harold looked at Dorothy, then at his son, then at Mildred. The snow continued to fall, creating a melancholy setting for this long-awaited revelation. "Your mother was sick. The doctors said she had only a few months to live. The inn was going bankrupt because of the treatment costs. I couldn't bear the thought of watching her go." "So you left first?" Raymond asked, incredulous. "I thought it would be easier for you, that you could start over without me." "Easier?" Raymond shouted. "Do you know what was easier, Dad? Watching Mum waste away during the last 6 months of her life asking where you were." Dorothy felt the tears stream freely down her face. The story was far more complex and painful than she had imagined. "She forgave you until the last day," Raymond continued, his voice breaking. "She said you would come back, that you had a good reason for leaving." "And I tried to come back," Harold confessed. "I tried many times, but I always gave up at the last minute." "Why?" "Because I thought you would be better off without me. Because I hated myself for running away when you needed me most." Dorothy realized her husband had been carrying a devastating guilt for 40 years. That explained his tendency toward isolation, his difficulty in talking about the past. "Where are your other children?" she asked Raymond. "Patricia lives in Chicago. She works as a nurse. Walter is abroad. He never wanted to come back to the United States after he managed to graduate." "Do they know you found me?" "Not yet, but they will. This story needs to end once and for all." Mildred, who had remained silent during the family argument, finally spoke up. "If I may offer an opinion, I think everyone should get out of this cold. You can come to my house to talk better." "Thank you, Mildred," Raymond said. "But I'd rather settle this now. Dad, will you come with me to town to sign the sale papers?" Harold looked at Dorothy, clearly torn. "I need some time to process all of this," Dorothy said. "I found out today that my marriage was based on lies." "Dorothy, please, let me explain better." "Explain what, Harold? That you lied about your entire life? That I married a ghost?" "You don't understand. I was trying to protect you." "Protect me from what?" "From the truth." Raymond watched the couple argue with a bitter, satisfied expression. "You see, Dad, you hurt another family. First yours, now hers." "Raymond, don't drag Dorothy into this," Harold said, finally showing firmness. "Why not? She's part of it now, isn't she? Or are you going to abandon her too when things get tough? Dorothy felt a deep pain at those words. The possibility of Harold abandoning her too had never crossed her mind, but now it seemed real. "I would never abandon Dorothy," Harold said with conviction. "Like you never abandoned Mom? Like you never abandoned us?" The silence that followed was deafening. Dorothy realized she needed to make a decision about her marriage, but she was emotionally exhausted. "Mildred, may I accept your offer of a place to talk?" she asked. "I need to understand this whole story better." "Of course, my dear. Everyone, come along." During the trip to Mildred's house, Dorothy observed the landscape of the town where she had never been before. It was a small place, typical of the countryside, where everyone knew each other. It made sense that Harold's story was well known there. In Mildred's cozy home, she prepared hot coffee while the three of them settled in the living room. The tension in the air was palpable. "Mildred, did you know my husband's first wife?" Dorothy asked. "Yes, I did. Mrs. Evelyn was a very good woman, always kind to everyone." "What was she like?" "Beautiful, delicate. But in her last years, she became very ill. Cancer, if I'm not mistaken." Dorothy absorbed the information. Harold had lost his first wife to a serious illness. That at least partially explained his flight. "And what were the children like?" "Raymond was the oldest, about 12 when his father disappeared. Patricia was 10 and Walter was 8. Beautiful, well-behaved children." Dorothy looked at Raymond, trying to imagine him as the frightened child left without a father at 12. "It must have been very hard for you," she said to him. "It was, especially because we didn't understand why Dad had left. We kept thinking we had done something wrong." The revelation moved Dorothy deeply. She realized she wasn't the only victim of Harold's choices. "And the inn, what was it like?" "Beautiful," Mildred answered. "It was on a mountainside overlooking the valley. Mrs. Evelyn took care of the gardens. Mr. Harold handled the administration. It was a place very sought after by tourists." "Why did it fail?" "The medical expenses were enormous," Raymond explained. "Dad spent all the savings on Mom's treatment. After he disappeared, I tried to keep everything running, but I had neither experience nor money." "And you managed to keep it going for 5 years." "I tried. I took out loans, worked day and night, but in the end I lost everything anyway." Dorothy admired the determination of young Raymond, who at 12 years old took on a responsibility that shouldn't even have been his. "Where do you live now?" "I have a simple house in the city. I work at the city hall. Patricia helps me when she can, but she has her own life in Chicago." "And Walter? He hasn't spoken to us in years. He's too hurt." Dorothy realized that Harold's family had been shattered for decades because of his choices. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot who are just starting out now continuing. "Raymond, may I ask a personal question?" Dorothy said. "Go ahead. You never married, never had children." He lowered his eyes. "I had trouble trusting people after Dad abandoned us. I thought everyone would leave at the first sign of difficulty." Dorothy felt a pang in her heart. Harold's actions had deeply marked his children's lives, preventing them from forming healthy relationships. "And your siblings?" "Patricia got married, but divorced. She also has trust issues. Walter never wanted to talk about relationships." "Because of the father's abandonment?" "Because of everything. The abandonment, the struggle to survive, the feeling that we can't count on anyone." Harold, who had remained silent throughout the conversation, finally spoke up. "Raymond, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that." "Didn't know what?" "That abandoning 3 children would mark them for the rest of their lives. I thought it would be better." "Better for whom?" "For you." Dorothy intervened before the discussion heated up again. "Mildred, you said the property is still in Harold's name. How is that possible after 40 years? Apparently, he never signed any documents transferring or selling it, and since it was a rural property, there hasn't been much interest from others until now." "But now there is?" "There is. Some businessmen want to build a luxury hotel in the area. They're offering good money." Raymond perked up at the subject. "It's a good opportunity to settle the debts and for each of us to move on with our lives. And if I don't want to sell, Harold asked again. Dad, you don't have the right to not want to. You abandoned the property along with the family. But legally, it's still mine. Legally, maybe. Morally, no. Dorothy realized she was in the middle of a complex family dispute. On one hand, she understood Raymond's position. On the other, she knew the Harold of the last 15 years, a caring and dedicated man. Harold, why don't you want to sell the property? She asked. Because it's all I have left of Evelyn and the children. The confession was like a bomb. Dorothy realized her husband still carried love for his first family. Then why did you marry me? She asked, hurt. Because I love you, Dorothy, but that doesn't mean I can forget my past. Can you love two people at the same time? I can love the memory of one and the reality of the other. Raymond was visibly uncomfortable with the statement. You don't have the right to love Mom's memory, not after abandoning her. Raymond, I know I made mistakes. Mistakes? You destroyed an entire family. Dorothy realized she needed time to process all of this. The conversation was becoming too heavy. Mildred, may I stay here tonight? I need to think about all this. Of course, my daughter. I have a guest room. What about me? Harold asked, uncertain. Dorothy looked at him with eyes full of pain. You need to resolve this situation with your children. I need to decide if I want to stay married to a man who lied to me for 15 years. Dorothy, please. No, Harold, please don't. I had to find out you had a whole family from a stranger. I had to find out you abandoned 3 children. I had to find out you owned property while we lived in a tent. How do you expect me to trust you again? Dorothy's words echoed in the silent room. Even Raymond seemed embarrassed by her pain. Mom, Dorothy, he said, surprising everyone by addressing her that way. I know my anger is directed at you too, sir, but it's not fair. The fault is his alone. Thank you, Raymond, but I also have responsibility. I should have insisted more on knowing his past. No, ma'am, when someone lies, the fault lies with the liar, not the one who believes. Dorothy was touched by her stepson's unexpected defense. Harold, where will you sleep tonight? Mildred asked. I can stay at the inn, he replied softly. If Raymond allows it. That's not possible. The place has been abandoned for years, Raymond said. I'll manage. Dad, that's crazy. The place is falling apart. Maybe that's what I deserve. Dorothy felt sorry for her husband, but she was still too hurt to offer comfort. Raymond, can you take him to your house? She asked. I don't know if I can. Please, for me. Raymond looked at her, surprised by the request. All right, but I'll have a lot of questions for him. Thank you. Mildred, can I see the property tomorrow? Dorothy asked. Of course. I can take you there in the morning. I want to understand this whole story better before making any decision. That night, Dorothy barely slept. Her mind processed all the day's revelations. How could she have lived 15 years with a man without knowing his true past? In Mildred's guest room, she wondered if she really knew Harold. The man she married seemed completely different from the man who abandoned a family. At Raymond's house, the conversation between father and son went on late into the night. Why did you really leave, Dad? I already told you. I couldn't bear to watch your mother die. But that doesn't explain why you never came back. Harold sighed deeply. When I found out she had passed, I thought you would hate me forever. And we did hate you. I know, and that kept me even farther away. Dad, do you know how many times I dreamed you would come back? Raymond, until I was 15, I dreamed every night that you would knock on the door and say it was all a misunderstanding. His son's confession moved Harold deeply. I dreamed about you too, every night. Then why did you never come back? Because I thought you were better off without me. How could we be better off without a father? I was a failure, Raymond. I couldn't save your mother. I couldn't keep the inn running. I couldn't be the father you deserved. But we needed you. Even imperfect, you were our father. I know that now, but back then all I could see were my failures. Raymond was silent for a moment, processing his father's words. Will Patricia and Walter want to see you? I don't know. After 40 years, maybe it's too late. It's never too late for a family to reunite. Do you really believe that? I don't know, Dad, but I think we can try. In the morning, Dorothy woke up determined to see the abandoned property. Mildred drove her along the winding road up the mountain. There it is! Mildred pointed to a structure partially hidden by vegetation. Dorothy was impressed by the size of the property. Even abandoned, it was still possible to see it had been a beautiful place. Was it always this big? Yes, it had 20 rooms, a restaurant, a recreation area. It was one of the best inns in the region. They got out of the car and walked to the main building. The wood was deteriorated, but the structure still seemed solid. Can I go inside? You can, but be careful. It's been many years since anyone did maintenance. Dorothy entered the reception of the old inn. Even with the dirt and decay, she could imagine how beautiful it had been. In what appeared to have been the living room, she found some dusty photographs still hanging on the wall. They were family pictures, a younger Harold, a beautiful woman who must have been Evelyn, and 3 children. This is his first family, she murmured, looking at the images. Mildred approached. They were a beautiful family. Everyone commented on how happy they looked. What happened to make everything change like this? Mrs. Evelyn's illness was very quick and aggressive. In less than 2 years, she went from healthy to the end. Dorothy continued exploring the inn. She found what seemed to have been Harold's office, still with some old papers on the dusty desk. He really abandoned everything, she said, touching an open planner on a date from 40 years ago. Overnight, Raymond said that when they woke up, he simply wasn't there anymore. And he never got in touch again. Never. It was as if he had vanished from the face of the earth. Dorothy sat in the chair that had been Harold's and tried to imagine what he felt in those last days before leaving. Mildred, do you think he did the right thing? It's not for me to judge, my dear, but I can say the boys suffered a lot. And if he had stayed, maybe they would have suffered less, or maybe they would have suffered differently. We'll never know. Dorothy found a slightly open drawer and, curious, opened it completely. Inside were letters, many letters. What are these? Mildred approached and looked. They look like letters he never sent. Dorothy picked up one of the letters and read the name on the envelope. To Raymond, Patricia, and Walter. May I read it? I think you should ask them first. Dorothy put the letter away, but curiosity was killing her. Had Harold written to his children? Mildred, I think I need to talk to Raymond. They returned to town and found Raymond at the city hall where he worked. Dorothy told him about the letters she found. Letters? What letters? Letters addressed to you, Patricia and Walter. They're in the inn's office. Raymond was visibly shaken. He wrote to us. Many letters, from what I saw. And he never sent them? Apparently not. Raymond cancelled the rest of his workday and went with Dorothy to the inn. When he saw the pile of letters, his legs faltered. There are so many, he murmured. Do you want to read them? I don't know if I'm ready. We can take them to your house. You can read them when you feel prepared. Raymond agreed, and they gathered all the letters. There were dozens of them, written over several years. Back at his house, Raymond finally opened the first letter, dated 2 weeks after Harold's disappearance. My dear children, I think of you every day. I know you don't understand why I left, but I hope one day I can explain. Raymond couldn't continue reading. Tears blurred his vision. Dorothy, I can't. It's too painful. Do you want me to read it to you? That might be better. Dorothy continued reading the letter, where Harold explained his decision and asked for forgiveness for abandoning them. It was a letter full of love and regret. He really did love us, Raymond said, moved. He always did. That's clear in the letter. They spent the entire afternoon reading the letters. In some, Harold told about his new life. In others, he expressed longing and remorse. All were filled with love for his children. Why did he never send these letters? Raymond asked. Perhaps he thought you wouldn't want to receive them. Of course we wanted to. We spent years not knowing if he was alive. Dorothy realized the letters changed everything. Harold hadn't simply abandoned his children and forgotten them. He had carried the pain of separation all these years. "Raymond, are you going to show the letters to Patricia and Walter?" "I will. They deserve to know." "And what about selling the property?" Raymond became thoughtful. "I don't know anymore. These letters show a side of Dad I never knew." "What side?" "The side that regrets. The side that never stopped loving us." Dorothy felt a change happening in Raymond's heart. The letters were healing old wounds. "Do you want to talk to him?" "I do. But first I need to talk to my siblings." Raymond called Patricia in Chicago and explained the whole situation. She was shocked, but agreed to come to town for the weekend. Walter, abroad, was harder to convince, but he finally agreed to join a video conference. During the video call, Walter was moved to see his father after 40 years. "Dad," was all he could say. "Hi, my son," Harold answered, his voice choked. "Why did you leave?" The question they had all carried for decades was finally asked directly. "Because I was a coward, Walter, because I couldn't face the pain of losing your mother." "But you lost us too." "I know. And it was the biggest mistake of my life," Walter cried on the other side of the screen. "I missed you so much, Dad. I missed you too. Every day." The conversation went on for hours. Walter talked about his life abroad, about how he had struggled to graduate and build a career. "I always wanted to make you proud, Dad," he said. "You make me proud, my son. You always have." "Even after you ran away from our family?" "I didn't run away from you. I ran from my own inability to deal with the pain." Dorothy watched the reunion with a broken heart. On one hand, she was happy to see the family coming together. On the other, she still hadn't resolved her own feelings about Harold's lies. Patricia arrived on Friday night. She was more cautious in the reunion with her father. "Dad," she said simply, not moving in for a hug. "Patricia, my girl." "I'm not a girl anymore, Dad. I'm a 50-year-old woman who spent her whole life without a father." "I know, and I'm sorry. Are you really? Or are you just saying that because you got caught?" Patricia's question was direct and painful. "I've been sorry since the day I left home, Patricia. The letters prove that. The letters you never sent. Because I thought you would hate me. We did hate you, but we would have rather hated you present than hated your absence." Harold bowed his head, understanding the depth of the pain he had caused. "Patricia, can I do anything to make it up to you? You can explain why you lied to your second wife about having a family." Dorothy was surprised that Patricia directed the conversation to her. "I lied because I was ashamed," Harold confessed. "Ashamed of having children? Ashamed of having abandoned you. And you thought lying would be better? I thought it would be easier." "Easier for whom?" "For me." Harold's brutal honesty surprised everyone. "At least now you're being honest," Patricia said. "Patricia, I love you. I always have. The letters prove that. Dad, to love isn't just to feel. To love is to stay. It's to fight. It's to face difficulties together. Can you give me a second chance?" Patricia looked at Raymond and then at the screen where Walter was still connected. "I don't know, Dad. 40 years is a long time." "I know. But I can try to earn back your trust." "How?" "By staying. By facing it. By fighting. All the things I should have done 40 years ago." Dorothy realized she was witnessing a historic moment for that family, but she was also facing her own crisis. "Harold, I need some time to decide about our marriage," she said. "Dorothy, please." "No, you lied to me for 15 years. I need to figure out who you really are." "You know me, Dorothy. I'm the same man you married." "No. You are the man who abandoned 3 children and hid that from me." "I am both men, the one who made mistakes in the past and the one who tried to start over with you. But how can I trust you again?" "By giving me the chance to prove I've changed." "Have you changed? Or have you just gotten better at hiding your secrets?" The question hung in the air, unanswered. Raymond intervened in the discussion. "Mom, Dorothy, can I say something?" "Of course. I understand your anger. We felt that anger too for 40 years. But these letters show that Dad suffered as much as we did. That doesn't justify the lies, Raymond. It doesn't justify them, but it explains them." Patricia also spoke up. "Dorothy, I don't know you, but I can see that you love our father. Loved. Now I'm not sure anymore. And he clearly loves you. How can I know if it's true? He lied about everything else. Because we see how he looks at you, Walter said from the screen. It's the same way he used to look at our mother. Dorothy was moved by the observation. Do you think I should forgive him? We think you should decide if you can live with his truth, Raymond answered. What truth? That he is a man who makes terrible mistakes, but who loves deeply. Dorothy spent the weekend reflecting on everything. On Sunday, she asked to speak with Harold alone. Do you really want to save our marriage? She asked. More than anything in life. Then you'll have to accept my conditions. What are they? No more secrets. Ever again. I promise. We will go to couples therapy. I accept. And you will rebuild the relationship with your children. I'll try. You won't try. You will succeed, because I will not stay married to a man who abandons family. I understand. And about the inn. What about it? We're not selling. Harold was surprised. What do you mean? We're going to rebuild it. Together. With your children. Dorothy, that would be wonderful, but we don't have the money. We'll manage. Your children are capable professionals. Raymond has administrative experience. Patricia is a nurse and can handle first aid. Walter can help with international contacts. Do you really believe in this? I do, but only if you promise you will never run from difficulties again. I solemnly promise. Dorothy sealed the promise with a kiss, the first they had shared since the truth was discovered. Shall we tell your children? When Dorothy presented the plan to rebuild the inn, the reactions were mixed. It's too big a project, Raymond said, skeptical. Big projects need great courage, Dorothy replied. But not all of us live here, Patricia reminded her. You can move. Nurses are needed everywhere. And Walter is abroad, Raymond added. He can come at least to help with the reconstruction, and then decide if he wants to stay. Walter, still on the video call, spoke up. I've always wanted to return to the United States. I just didn't know how. This is your chance, Dorothy said. But it will be a lot of work, Patricia considered. The best work is the work we do as a family, Dorothy replied with a smile. Harold watched the conversation in silence, impressed by the leadership Dorothy was showing. Dorothy, are you sure about this? He asked. I am, but I need everyone to be truly committed. What do you mean? Raymond asked. I need you to forgive your father. Truly, not for him, but for yourselves. It's hard to forgive 40 years of abandonment, Patricia said. It is. But it's impossible to build a future carrying the weight of the past. Raymond became thoughtful for a moment. Mom, Dorothy, may I ask why you're doing this? Doing what? Fighting for our family. You could simply leave and restart your life. I could. But this is my husband, and you are my stepchildren. Family doesn't give up on family. The answer deeply moved everyone. Even after finding out he lied? Patricia asked. Especially after finding that out. Because now I know he needs help to be a better person. And you believe he can change? I believe, but only if he doesn't do it alone. Walter spoke up from the screen. I accept trying. I accept returning to the United States and participating in the inn's reconstruction. Really? Raymond asked, surprised. Really? I miss home. And maybe this is my chance to have a family again. Patricia also got emotional. If Walter returns, I accept too. I can request a transfer to a hospital in the region. Raymond looked at his father. Daddy, do you promise that this time you'll stay? That you won't run away at the first difficulty? I promise, my son. In fact, I promise I'll fight so hard for this family that you'll get tired of me. Then it's decided, Dorothy said. Let's rebuild the Green Mountain Inn. The following months were intense. Walter returned from abroad and brought some money he had saved. Patricia got her transfer. Raymond took a leave from his job at City Hall. The inn's reconstruction became family therapy. Working side by side, father and children began healing old wounds. Dad, pass me that hammer, Raymond asked one day. It was the first time in 40 years he had called Harold Dad, without resentment in his voice. Here you go, son. Dorothy watched these small victories with a heart full of joy. She had made the right decision. Patricia, can you check if the electrical wiring in room 3 is working? She asked. Of course, Mom, Dorothy. The affectionate treatment from her stepchildren moved Dorothy every day. Walter, how's the contact with those tourism companies going? Good, Mom. 3 have already shown interest in forming partnerships when we reopen. During the evenings after work, the family gathered for dinner and conversation. They were the conversations they hadn't had for 40 years. Dad, do you remember that day you taught me to fish? Walter asked one night. I remember. You were 6 and insisted on using a rod bigger than you. And I caught that huge fish. Actually, the fish caught you. You almost fell into the lake. Everyone laughed at the memory. It was good to be able to talk about the past without pain. Daddy, why did you stop teaching us those things? Patricia asked. Because when your mother got sick, I thought I didn't have time for anything besides work and caring for her. But we wanted to help. You were too young. I wanted to protect you from the pain. And you ended up protecting us from love, too, Raymond observed. It was my mistake. I thought being a father was solving all the problems alone. Being a father is sharing the problems with the family, Dorothy said. I learned that too late. It's never too late to learn, Patricia said, touching her father's hand. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. The inn's reconstruction was almost complete when the first problems appeared. One of the businessmen who had shown interest in buying the property came with an aggressive offer. Mr. Mitchell, my final offer is $2 million in cash up front. It's not for sale, Harold answered firmly. Everything is for sale for the right price. $3 million. I already said no. $5 million. Final offer. Dorothy realized the businessman was desperate to get the property. Why so much interest? She asked. It's a strategic location for our projects. What projects? The man hesitated before answering. A tourist complex. Complex or resort? Luxury resort. Raymond was suspicious of the insistence. Sir, may I ask why specifically our property? As I said, strategic location. There are other properties in the area. This is the one we're interested in. Dorothy exchanged looks with Harold. There was something suspicious about that insistence. Thank you for the offer, but our answer is no, Harold said definitively. You'll regret this, the businessman said before leaving. Was that a threat? Walter asked. It seemed like it, Raymond answered. I'll investigate who these businessmen are, Patricia offered. A few days later, Patricia returned with troubling information. I found out they don't want to build a resort. What do they want then? Dorothy asked. Extract minerals. There's a quartzite deposit in our mountain. Quartzite? Harold asked. It's used in construction. It's worth a lot of money. And they knew this when they made the offers? Raymond asked. Absolutely. The deposit was discovered 2 years ago, but the information wasn't made public. Dorothy was outraged. So they wanted to deceive us? Exactly. The property's value with the deposit is much higher than the $5 million offered. How much higher? Walter asked. At least $20 million, maybe more. The revelation completely changed the perspective on the offers. Now I understand why they insisted so much, Harold said. The question is, what do we do with this information? Dorothy asked. We could sell for a fair price, Raymond suggested. Or we could keep the inn and negotiate the extraction rights, Walter proposed. Or we could simply not touch the deposit, Patricia said. Why not touch it? Raymond asked. Because mineral extraction destroys the environment. Our inn is beautiful precisely because the nature is preserved. Dorothy agreed with Patricia. She's right. If we allow extraction, we'll destroy everything we're building. But the money from the deposit would solve all our financial problems, Walter reminded. And it would create other problems, Harold said. I had money once and lost everything. I learned that happiness isn't in money. Where is it then? Raymond asked. In family, in being together with those we love. The father's answer moved his children. So we'll keep our decision not to sell? Dorothy asked. We will, everyone answered in unison. But the businessmen didn't give up easily. They started a pressure campaign, offering money to other property owners in the region to pressure the Mitchell family. "Mr. Harold, you're being selfish," said a neighbor. "Mineral extraction would bring jobs to the whole region." "And environmental destruction too," Dorothy replied. "You're not from here. You don't understand our needs." "I understand the need to preserve the planet for future generations." The discussion spread through the town, dividing opinions. Some supported the Mitchell family, others wanted the mineral extraction. "We're becoming a source of division in the town," Raymond observed, worried. "It's not us who are dividing, it's the economic interests," Dorothy corrected. "But maybe we should rethink our decision," Walter suggested. "Why?" Patricia asked. "Because we don't want to be seen as villains." "We're not villains for protecting the environment," Dorothy said firmly. "But we are seen that way by some," Walter insisted. Harold, who had remained quiet during the discussion, finally spoke up. "Children, my whole life I've made decisions thinking about what others would think of me." "And so?" Raymond asked. "And it led me to abandon you, because I thought you'd be better off without me." "Oh, I see," Patricia said. "You're saying we shouldn't care about what others think. I'm saying we should care about doing the right thing, not the popular thing." "And what is the right thing in this case?" Walter asked. "Protecting our land, protecting our family, protecting our future." Dorothy smiled, proud of her husband's growth. "Then our decision is made. We won't sell." The businessmen, realizing they couldn't convince the Mitchell family, resorted to more aggressive methods. They began spreading rumors about the inn, trying to harm the business. "They're saying our food causes food poisoning," Patricia reported, outraged. "It's a lie," Dorothy exclaimed. "Of course it is, but people are believing it." "And they're saying our rooms have pests," Raymond added. "Also a lie," Walter said. "We need to do something to fight these rumors," Harold said. "What can we do?" Dorothy asked. "Open the inn's doors to the community, show that everything is in perfect condition." Harold's idea was accepted by everyone. They organized an open house day, inviting the whole town to see the rebuilt inn. "We'll serve free food made in our kitchen," Patricia suggested. "And we'll show all the rooms," Raymond added. "Great idea. Total transparency," Dorothy agreed. The event was a success. Hundreds of people visited the inn and could verify that everything was in excellent condition. "Mrs. Dorothy, your food is delicious," said an elderly lady. "Thank you. It's made with love and fresh ingredients." "And the rooms are beautiful, very clean and comfortable," commented another visitor. "My son Raymond personally took care of the cleaning," Dorothy said with pride. During the event, many people expressed support for the family's decision not to sell the property. "You're right to protect our mountain," said the local school teacher. "Nature is our most valuable heritage," agreed the pharmacy owner. "If we allow extraction here, soon they'll want to extract everywhere," observed the town priest. The community's support strengthened the family's resolve. "We will resist all pressure," Harold declared publicly, but the businessmen still had a card up their sleeve. They discovered an old debt from the time when Raymond had tried to keep the inn running. "Mr. Raymond Mitchell," a court officer appeared at the inn. "Yes?" "I have a warrant for the seizure of this property due to unsettled debts." Raymond turned pale. "What debts?" "Loans taken out in the inn's name 15 years ago." "But I paid off those debts. Our records show pending interest and monetary correction." Dorothy examined the documents. "This is impossible. The debt amount has multiplied by 10. It's compound interest, Ma'am." "Predatory interest," Patricia protested. "Unfortunately, it's legal." Harold realized the businessmen were behind this problem. "How long do we have to settle it?" he asked. 30 days. Otherwise, the property goes to auction." When the officer left, the family gathered in despair. "We have no way to get that much money in 30 days, Raymond said, devastated. "What's the total debt?" Dorothy asked. $500,000. "That's a lot of money," Walter sighed. "We can ask for a loan," Patricia suggested. "With what collateral?" Raymond asked. "The inn itself could be collateral," Dorothy said. "But if we can't pay, we lose everything anyway." Harold was thoughtful for a moment. "There is a solution." "What?" everyone asked. "We can sell a small part of the property, just enough to settle the debt." To whom? To someone we trust, someone who won't destroy the environment. Who would that be? Dorothy asked. Mildred. She has money saved and always wanted to have a piece of land in the mountains. The idea seemed viable to everyone. But will she accept? Raymond asked. Only by asking will we know. Mildred accepted the proposal immediately. Of course I accept. I've always dreamed of having a little house in the mountains. Do you have the money? Dorothy asked. I do. I've saved my whole life to buy a piece of land. And you promise not to sell to the developers? Harold asked. I promise. In fact, I hate the idea of mining. The deal was closed quickly. Mildred bought a small part of the property, enough to pay off the debts and still have a little left over. With the money left, we can finish decorating the inn, Dorothy said, excited. And we can hire staff, Raymond added. When will we officially open? Walter asked. On the anniversary of the first inn, Harold suggested. When was that? Patricia asked. December 15th, exactly 42 years ago. The date held a special symbolism for the whole family. It will be like a rebirth, Dorothy said. A fresh start, Raymond agreed. A second chance, Patricia added. For all of us, Walter concluded. The opening of the new Green Mountain Inn was set for December 15th. In the days leading up to the event, the family worked intensely to make everything perfect. Mom, Dorothy, do you think Mom would be proud to see the inn like this? Patricia asked while arranging flowers in the garden. I'm sure she would be. You all managed to fulfill her dream. Actually, it was you who managed it. If it weren't for you, Dad and we would never have reconciled. I only helped you find the way. The love was always there. Raymond approached the two. Mom, Dorothy, can I ask a personal question? Of course. Are you jealous of our mother? The question was delicate, but Dorothy answered honestly. Sometimes, but I've learned you can't compete with a memory. How so? Your mother will always be special to you and to your father. And that's good. It means you know how to love deeply. And how do you deal with it? By trying to be special too, in a different way, but special. Patricia was moved by the answer. You are special, Mom, Dorothy. Very special. To me, you are the mother I wish I had had, Raymond said. Dorothy hugged them both, moved. And you are the children I never could have. The moment was interrupted by Walter, who came running. Guys, you need to see this. What is it? Dorothy asked. The developers are at the entrance to the property, and they brought lawyers. The family went to the entrance, where they found a small crowd. Mr. Mitchell, we need to talk, said the group's leader. We have nothing to talk about, Harold answered firmly. We have a final offer. We're not interested. 10 million, in cash. I already said no. 15 million. Our property is not for sale. The developer became visibly irritated. You don't know who you're dealing with. And you don't know who you're dealing with, Dorothy said courageously. Oh, really? And who am I dealing with? With a united family that doesn't get intimidated. Raymond positioned himself beside his mother. My mother is right. We are not intimidated. Patricia and Walter also stepped closer. We are 5 against however many of you there are, Patricia said, and we have the community's support, Walter added. At that moment, Mildred arrived accompanied by several people from the town. Mrs. Dorothy, we heard they were bothering you, she said. We came to show our support, said the teacher. The whole town is with you, added the priest. The developers realized they were outnumbered and had lost the battle for public opinion. This isn't over, the leader said before leaving. For us it is, Harold replied. You won't manage to intimidate us. The community's show of support deeply moved the family. Thank you for being here with us, Dorothy said to everyone. You did the right thing protecting our mountain, Mildred replied. And now we will all benefit from the inn, said the professor. How so? Raymond asked. Tourists will come here, they'll spend money at local businesses, they'll create jobs. Without destroying the environment, the priest added. The official opening of the Green Mountain Inn happened as planned. Over 200 people attended the event. Dear friends, Harold said in the opening speech, this inn represents much more than a business for our family. It represents forgiveness, a new beginning and hope, Dorothy continued. It represents proof that it's never too late to correct the mistakes of the past, Raymond added. And that family love overcomes any obstacle, Patricia said. Thank you all for supporting us on this journey, Walter concluded. The applause was long and emotional. The Mitchell family had managed to reunite and rebuild not just the inn, but their relationships. Mildred approached Dorothy during the party. My daughter, can I give you a hug? Of course. You performed a miracle for this family. I didn't do anything, I just helped them find each other again. It was much more than that. You taught all of us that it's worth fighting for family. During the party, Walter made an unexpected announcement. Everyone, I'd like to share a decision. What is it? Raymond asked. I've decided to return to the United States for good. I want to stay here and help manage the inn. The announcement was met with joy by the whole family. Really? Patricia asked, moved. Really? I spent 20 years abroad trying to escape the pain of abandonment. Now I understand my family is here. Harold couldn't hold back his tears. Son, that makes me very happy. Me too, Dad. Patricia also had a surprise for the family. Since we're making announcements, I have one too. What is it? Dorothy asked. I got my permanent transfer. I'm going to work at the city hospital. Patricia, Raymond exclaimed. That's wonderful. Now we will all be together again, she said. Almost all of us, Walter said, looking at a photo of his mother displayed at the reception. All of us, Dorothy corrected. Your mother is here in your hearts. The party went on late into the night. When everyone had left, the family gathered on the porch to look at the mountain illuminated by the moon. We did it, Harold said, emotional. Did what? Dorothy asked. We became a family again. We were always a family, Raymond said. We were just lost. And now we've found each other, Patricia added. Thanks to Mom Dorothy, Walter said. Not just thanks to me. Thanks to the love you've always had for each other. And thanks to Dad, who finally had the courage to face his mistakes, Raymond said. Harold looked at his children, then at Dorothy. You've forgiven me more than I deserved. Dad, family isn't about deserving, Patricia said. It's about loving unconditionally. Even when we make mistakes, Walter added. Especially when we make mistakes, Dorothy finished. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Dorothy and Harold stayed up talking. Dorothy, thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for letting me be part of this family. You were always part of this family, since the day we got married. Even though I didn't know your past. You knew my present, and you bet on our future. Dorothy snuggled into her husband's arms. Harold, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you regret lying about your first family? I regret having lied, but I don't regret having found you. Why? Because you taught me that it's possible to start over without forgetting the past. And you taught me that true love overcomes any obstacle, even 15-year lies, even 40-year lies. They laughed together, complicit in building that new chapter of their lives. The following months were filled with hard work and joy. The Green Mountain Inn quickly became a success, attracting tourists from various parts of the country. Mum Dorothy, we have bookings through the end of the year, Raymond announced one morning. How wonderful, she exclaimed. And we received an invitation to be featured in a national travel guide, Patricia added. Our work is being recognized, Walter said, proud. Harold, who was tending to the garden, approached the family. You know what's better than all this success? What? Dorothy asked. Building it together. Dad is right, Raymond agreed. The money is good, but family unity is priceless. 1 year after the opening, the family decided to start a tradition. Every December 15th, they would gather to celebrate not just the inn's anniversary, but the family's rebirth. To the first anniversary of the new Green Mountain Inn, Harold toasted. And to the 50 years of forgiveness we still have ahead of us, Dorothy added. To the family that never stopped loving each other, Raymond said. To the mistakes that turned into lessons, Patricia continued. And to the future we build together, Walter concluded. During the celebration, Dorothy had a surprise for the family. I have a gift for you. What gift? Patricia asked, curious. Dorothy brought out a wrapped box and handed it to Harold. Open it. Inside the box was a photo album with all the special moments from the past year, the inn's reconstruction, the first family discussions, the reconciliations, the opening, the first guests. "Dorothy," Harold murmured, moved. "I wanted to document our journey, so we never forget how we got here." Raymond flipped through the album and stopped at a specific photo. "This one is my favorite." It was a picture of the whole family working together, painting the inn's facade, all covered in paint, but smiling. "Why that one?" Walter asked. "Because it shows that no matter how dirty and difficult the task is, when we do it together, it's fun." Patricia found her favorite photo. The family gathered for the first Christmas dinner they had shared in 40 years. "This is the most emotional one for me." "Why?" Dorothy asked. "Because it shows that family traditions can be rebuilt." Walter chose a photo of him and his father talking on the porch. "This represents the moment I finally managed to talk to Dad without anger." Harold looked at all the photos and chose one of Dorothy arranging the inn's decorations. "This one is special because it shows the moment I understood you weren't trying to replace Evelyn." "What was I trying to do then?" "Create a new kind of love, a love that honors the past but builds the future." Dorothy was moved by the observation. "And what's your favorite photo?" Patricia asked her. Dorothy flipped through the album and stopped at a photo taken the day the businessmen tried to intimidate them, but the family stood united. "This one, because it shows that together we are stronger than any adversity." That night after the celebration, Dorothy found Harold on the porch contemplating the mountain. "What are you thinking about?" "How much life can change in a year. For the better." "Much better. A year ago I was a lost man lying about my past and living in a tent. And now I'm a man who found his family again, and who learned that truth, even when it hurts, is always better than a lie." "Do you regret anything that happened this past year?" Harold thought for a moment. "I regret not telling the truth from the very beginning of our marriage. We could have lived 15 years without lies, but perhaps we weren't ready to face the truth 15 years ago." "What do you mean?" "Perhaps we needed to live everything we lived to get to this point. The maturity, the strength, the wisdom to deal with complex situations." "Do you really believe that?" "I do. Sometimes things happen at the right time, not at the time we want." Harold embraced his wife. "Dorothy, thank you for teaching me that true love isn't perfect, but it is persistent. And thank you for teaching me that family is about choice, not just blood." "How so?" "You chose me as your wife. I chose your children as my children. They chose me as their mother. That's family. Conscious choices of love. And now? Now we keep choosing to love each other every day." 2 years later, the Green Mountain Inn had become a benchmark for sustainable tourism in the region. The Mitchell family was invited to give talks on family reconciliation and entrepreneurship. "I never imagined our personal story could inspire other people," Raymond commented after a talk at the local university. "Every story of overcoming inspires," Dorothy replied. "But ours has something special," Patricia observed. "What?" "It shows it's never too late to start over. Dad was 70 when he decided to face his past. And it shows that forgiveness is possible, even after decades of hurt," Walter added. During one of these talks, a woman in the audience asked a question that marked the family. "Mrs. Dorothy, how did you manage to forgive a man who lied for 15 years? Dorothy thought carefully before answering. "I didn't forgive all at once. It was a gradual process. First, I understood why he lied. Then I realized he suffered as much as the people he hurt. And finally, I decided I'd rather build a true future than remain stuck in a false past." "But didn't you want to leave?" "I did, many times. But then I realized that leaving would be easy. Staying and fighting for the family, that was the real challenge." "And was it worth it?" Dorothy looked at Harold, then at her stepchildren. "Look around and tell me, was it worth it?" The audience could see a clearly happy and united family. "It was very much worth it," she concluded. After the talk, Walter approached Dorothy. "Mum, can I tell you a secret?" "Of course." Sometimes I think about what our life would be like if Dad hadn't lied to you. And I don't think it would be as rich. Why? Because we wouldn't have gone through all the trials that strengthened us. We wouldn't have learned so much about forgiveness, about family, about love. Are you saying the difficulties were good? I'm saying the difficulties made us better people. Dorothy reflected on her stepson's words. You know, Walter, you might be right. If we'd had an easy life, maybe we wouldn't value what we have now so much. Exactly. The fight for this family made all of us become stronger, more united, more loving. That night, Dorothy shared the conversation with Harold. Walter said something interesting today. What? That our difficulties made us better people. He's right. I needed to lose my first family to learn to value family. You needed to discover my lies, to decide to fight for our love. And the children? They needed to grow up without a father to understand the importance of forgiveness. So you think everything happened as it should have? I don't know if it should have, but I know it happened in the way that brought us here. And here is a good place, Dorothy agreed. It is a very good place. 5 years after the opening of the new Green Mountain Inn, the family received an unexpected visit. Mildred appeared with an elderly couple. Dorothy, I want to introduce you. These are Frank and Ruth, a couple who were living on the streets. Dorothy looked at the elderly couple and saw their own story in them. Hello, welcome. Mrs. Dorothy, do you think you might have some work for us? Frank asked timidly. We don't have much money to pay employees, Raymond said. You don't need to pay. We just need a place to stay and some meals, Ruth replied. Dorothy exchanged glances with Harold. They were both thinking the same thing. Mildred, do they have family? Dorothy asked. They have 2 children who haven't spoken to them in years, because of some poor choices they made in the past. The story was very similar to their own. Dorothy made a decision. Frank and Ruth, you can stay with us, without paying anything, but on one condition. What is it? Frank asked, hopeful. You will help us create a project to help other elderly couples in vulnerable situations. How so? Ruth asked. We'll transform part of the inn into a temporary home for seniors who need support. The proposal surprised everyone. Mum, Dorothy, that's a beautiful idea, Patricia said. But it will be a lot of work, Raymond pondered. All work is worth it when it's to help people, Dorothy replied. And how will we fund it, Walter asked. With part of the inn's profits, and we can seek partnerships with social organizations. Harold was moved by his wife's proposal. Dorothy, you want to turn our inn into a support center for families in crisis. I do, because we know what it's like to be lost and need a second chance. It's a way to give back everything we received, Patricia said, delighted with the idea. Exactly. We received support from the community when we needed it. Now it's our turn to support those in need. The Green Mountain Home project was implemented over the following months. The family transformed a wing of the inn into small apartments for elderly couples in difficulty. How long can they stay? Raymond asked during the planning. As long as necessary to resolve their situations, Dorothy answered. And if they can't resolve them, then they'll stay forever. No one will be left helpless here. The first couple to be welcomed were Frank and Ruth. They helped create the project, sharing their experiences and needs. Mrs. Dorothy, why are you doing this? Ruth asked one day. Because we've been in your place. How so? A few years ago, Harold and I were living in a tent in the snow with no prospects, no hope. And what changed? We found people who believed in us, people who gave us a second chance. And now you do the same for others. It's our way of giving thanks. Frank was moved by the answer. You are angels in our lives. We're not angels. We're people who learned that helping others is the best way to heal our own wounds. 6 months later, Frank managed to re-establish contact with his children, inspired by the Mitchell family's story. Mrs. Dorothy, my children want to see me, he said, emotional. How wonderful, how did you manage it? I wrote a letter asking for forgiveness, just like your Harold did with his children. And did they reply? They did. They want to talk. Frank, I'm so happy for you. It was seeing you that I understood it's never too late to win back a family. Frank's reunion with his children was emotional. They came to visit their father at the inn and were impressed by the welcoming environment. "Dad, this place is amazing," said Frank's daughter. "The people here treat us like family," he replied. "And you are family," Dorothy said, joining the conversation. "Family is everyone who chooses to love and care for each other." Frank's son was curious. "Mrs. Dorothy, how does this project work?" "We welcome elderly couples in difficulty and support them until they can get back on their feet. Financially, emotionally, socially. Whatever is necessary. And you don't charge anything? We only ask that they allow themselves to be loved and that, when they can, they help others in the same situation." Frank's daughter was moved. "You saved our father. Your father saved himself. We just provided the environment for it to happen. Can I make a donation to the project?" "Of course. All help is welcome." "But there is one condition," Frank said to his children. "What?" "That you visit your father at least once a month." The children agreed, moved. A year later, Green Mountain Home had welcomed 15 elderly couples. Many managed to rekindle family ties. Others found emotional stability. All found a place where they felt valued. "Mom Dorothy, we've received a special invitation," Patricia announced one morning. "What invitation?" "The mayor wants to honor our project at the city council." "Why?" "Because we are pioneers in social assistance for the elderly in the region." "What an honor," Harold said. "The honor is being able to help," Dorothy replied. During the tribute ceremony, Dorothy was invited to speak. "Council members, community present, I am here today not to receive honors but to share a lesson." "What lesson?" asked the mayor. "That no one is lost forever, that every family can be rebuilt, that every love can be renewed." "How did you discover this?" "By living, by making mistakes, by suffering, and by choosing not to give up on loving." The speech moved the entire audience. "What is the secret to keeping a family united?" asked a council member. "There is no secret. There is daily work. There are constant choices. There is forgiveness renewed each day." "And for people who think it's too late to rebuild relationships, it's never too late. My husband reunited with his children at 70. Frank reunited with his children at 65. As long as there is life, there is a possibility for a new beginning." After the ceremony, the family gathered to celebrate. "I am proud of all of you," Dorothy said. "We are the ones who are proud of you," Raymond answered. "Why?" "For turning our broken family into a family that fixes other families." Raymond's observation touched Dorothy deeply. "Do you know what makes me proudest?" "What?" Patricia asked. "Seeing that you have learned that the greatest wealth is not money, but relationships." "Where did we learn that?" Walter asked. "From yourselves. When you chose to forgive instead of seeking revenge. When you chose to build instead of destroy." That night, Dorothy and Harold talked about the paths they had traveled. "Dorothy, when you found me living in a tent in the snow, what did you see in me?" "I saw a lost man, but not lost forever." "How did you know?" "Because your eyes still held hope, even in the midst of despair." "And today, what do you see?" "I see a man who found his family again, a man who learned that courage isn't the absence of fear, but facing fear." "And you? What did you discover about yourself?" "I discovered that I am stronger than I imagined, that I can love deeply even after being hurt." "And about us?" "I discovered that true love isn't perfect, but it is resilient." "Resilient how?" "Like the snow that melts but always returns, like the mountain that is eroded but remains, like the family that falls apart but rebuilds itself." 10 years after that cold day in the snow, Green Mountain Inn and Green Mountain Home had become national references in sustainable tourism and social assistance. "Mom Dorothy, we have a surprise for you," Raymond said one Sunday morning. "What surprise?" "Look outside." Dorothy looked out the window and saw dozens of people gathered in the inn's garden. "Who are all these people?" "They are all the families that have been reunited through our project," Patricia explained. "Frank and Ruth are there with their children and grandchildren," Walter added. "Mildred is there with her whole family," Raymond continued. "And they all came to thank you for teaching us that family is about not giving up," Harold concluded. Dorothy was deeply moved. As she stepped into the garden, she was greeted with applause and shouts of "Congratulations!" "Congratulations for what?" she asked. "For saving our family," said Frank. "For showing that forgiveness is possible," said Ruth. "For proving that love conquers all," said Mildred. "For turning pain into hope," said one of Frank's children. Dorothy looked at all those families gathered and realized that her own pain had become an instrument of healing for others. "I didn't save anyone," she said. "We saved each other." "How?" asked a child from the crowd. "By choosing to love even when it's hard. By choosing to forgive even when it hurts. By choosing to stay even when it would be easier to leave." "And did it work?" the child asked. Dorothy looked at Harold, then at Raymond, Patricia, and Walter, then at all the families around. "Look at yourselves and tell me, did it work?" The children's smiles, the couples' embraces, the unity of the families were the answer. "It worked," everyone shouted together. That afternoon, as the families celebrated together in the garden, Dorothy found a few minutes of silence on the porch. "What are you thinking about?" Harold asked, approaching. "About how our story began, with lies and separation, and how it is now, with truth and unity. Do you think all the pain we went through was worth it?" Harold looked at the garden full of happy families. "Dorothy, our pain turned into the joy of dozens of people. Our separation turned into the reunion of other families. Our mistakes turned into the successes of other couples. So it was worth it. Every tear, every fight, every moment of despair was worth it. Why? Because it brought us here, and here is where we choose to be." Dorothy smiled and snuggled into her husband's arms. "Harold, if you could go back, would you change anything?" "I would change just one thing." "What?" "I would tell the truth from the very first day of our marriage." "Just that?" "Just that. Everything else, including the pain, was necessary to get us here. Even the part where we lived in a tent in the snow. Especially that part. It was there that I understood I'd rather face the cold by your side than be warm alone. And it was there that I understood I'd rather have the painful truth than the comfortable lie." They were silent for a moment, watching the gathered families. "Dorothy, can I ask you a question?" "Always. Are you happy?" "I am profoundly happy. Even after everything we went through. Because of everything we went through." "How so?" "Because our happiness isn't based on the absence of problems, but on the presence of love." "And do you feel our love is strong?" "Our love survived 40 years of separation, 15 years of lies, years of struggle and rebuilding. If that isn't strong, I don't know what is." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. When the party ended and all the families had left, the Mitchells gathered in the living room to reflect on the day. "Today was special," Patricia said. "Why?" Dorothy asked. "Because we could see the concrete result of our work." "What result?" "Families united, people happy, love multiplied." Raymond stood up and went to the window. "You know what impresses me the most?" "What?" Walter asked. "How our broken family managed to fix so many other broken families." "Maybe that's exactly why," Dorothy observed. "How so?" "Those who have been through pain know how to heal it. Those who lived through separation know how to promote unity. So our suffering served a purpose, as Walter asked. They served to make us better people and to help others become better people too." Harold, who had remained silent, finally spoke up. "Kids, can I share something I've never told you?" "Of course, Dad," Patricia replied. "During the 40 years I was away from you, every night I dreamed of this day." "What day?" Raymond asked. "A day when we would all be reunited, happy, at peace. A day when you would have forgiven me and I would have forgiven myself." "And what was that dream like?" Dorothy asked. "Exactly like today was. You smiling, hugging, being a real family." "Dad, can I tell you a secret too?" Walter said. "Go ahead." "I dreamed of that too. Even with all the anger I felt, a part of me always hoped that one day we would reunite." "And I always knew this would happen," Patricia added. "How did you know?" Harold asked. Because the love we felt for each other was greater than the hurt. And because Mom always said family is forever, Raymond recalled. She did say that, Harold confirmed, moved. And she was right, Dorothy said. You are living proof that family is forever. Even when it breaks apart, Walter asked. Especially when it breaks apart, because separation is temporary, but family love is eternal. That night, before sleeping, Dorothy wrote in her personal diary, "Today I understood that our journey was never about living a perfect life, but about transforming our imperfections into instruments of love. Harold wasn't a perfect man when I met him, and he isn't perfect today, but he is a man who learned to turn his mistakes into lessons, his pain into compassion, his past into motivation for a better future. Raymond, Patricia, and Walter are not perfect children. They carry marks of abandonment, scars of pain, difficult memories, but they are children who chose forgiveness over revenge, building over destroying, love over hate. I am not a perfect wife. I felt anger, wanted to give up, doubted love. But I chose to believe that people can change, that families can be rebuilt, that true love is stronger than any obstacle. Our family is not perfect. We have arguments, difficult moments, constant challenges, but it is a family that chooses to fight, that chooses to love, that chooses to stay together despite everything. And perhaps that is exactly what makes our story special. We are not special because we are perfect, but because we are real. Because we show that a true family isn't about never making mistakes, but about always starting over. The next day, Dorothy found Mildred arranging flowers in the garden. "Mildred, can I ask you a question?" "Of course, my dear." "What do you think would have happened if you hadn't recognized Harold that day in the snow?" "I don't know." "Why do you ask?" "Because sometimes I think you were an angel sent to change our lives." Mildred laughed. "I'm no angel, Dorothy. I'm just a person who believes everyone deserves a second chance." "But if you hadn't said anything," "Someone else would have. Or you would have found out another way. What was meant to happen would have happened." "Do you really believe that?" "I do." "You were ready to face the truth." "I was just the instrument. And how do you know we were ready?" "Because you didn't run when you found out, you stayed and fought." Dorothy reflected on Mildred's words. "You know, you're right. If we hadn't been ready, we would have found a way to run from the truth." "Exactly. And you didn't run, you faced it. And now? Now you inspire other people to face their own truths." 2 years later, the Mitchell family's story was turned into a book, written by a journalist from the capital, who learned about the Green Mountain Home Project. "Dorothy, how do you feel knowing your story will be read by thousands of people?" the journalist asked during an interview. "I feel responsible." "What kind of responsibility?" "To show that our story isn't exceptional, it's possible for any family." "What do you mean by that?" "I mean that anyone can choose to forgive. Any family can choose to come together. Any couple can choose to start over. Even after decades of separation? Even after decades of separation? Even after many lies? Even after many lies? What does it take for that to happen? Humility to recognize mistakes, courage to ask for forgiveness, and enough love to give second chances. And if the other person doesn't want to forgive, then you forgive anyway, because forgiveness is about you, not the other person." "How so?" "Forgiveness is the decision to not let resentment control your life. It's the choice to be free, even when the other person chooses to remain trapped." The interview was published in a national magazine and generated hundreds of letters from readers sharing their own stories of family reconciliation. "Mom, Dorothy, look at this." Raymond showed a letter that arrived in the mail. "What is it?" "A letter from a family in Miami that reconciled after reading our story." "Really? Really?" "The father had abandoned the family 20 years ago. After reading about us, he decided to look for his children, and they accepted him." "They did, and now they are rebuilding the relationship." Dorothy was moved. "How many letters like this have arrived?" "More than 200. 200 families reconciling. 200 that we know of. There may be many more." The information left Dorothy deeply touched. "Raymond, this means our pain has turned into the joy of hundreds of families." It means every difficult moment we went through was worth it. Means that sometimes God uses our broken pieces to heal other people. That night, during the family dinner, Dorothy reflected. Do you realize what has happened to us? What? Patricia asked. We started as a broken family and became a family that rebuilds other families. It's true, Walter observed. Our own healing became medicine for other people. And do you know why? Harold asked. Why? Raymond questioned. Because we learned that our pain wasn't just ours. It was part of a greater pain that many families feel. And by healing our pain, we showed the way to heal the pain of others, Dorothy completed. So our story isn't just ours, Patricia asked. Our story belongs to every family that has been lost and wants to find its way back, Dorothy answered. To every father who has made mistakes and wants to make amends, Harold added. To every wife who has had her trust betrayed and needs to decide whether to forgive, Raymond continued. To every child who carries resentment and needs to learn to let go, Walter finished. To every person who believes they can start over, no matter their age, Patricia concluded. On the 10th anniversary of the new Green Mountain Inn, the family organized a big celebration. More than 500 people attended, including all the families that had been helped by the project. Dear friends, Dorothy addressed the crowd. 10 years ago, Harold and I were living in a tent in the snow with no prospects, no hope. And today, someone from the audience shouted, today we have more family than we ever dreamed of, because we learned that family isn't just blood, it's love, it's choice, it's commitment. What changed? Another person asked. We changed. We stopped running from the truth. We stopped running from the pain. We stopped running from love. And what did we find? Harold took the microphone. We found that truth, even when it hurts, sets you free. That pain, when shared, lessens. That love, when true, multiplies. Dad, can I say something? Raymond asked for the microphone. Of course, son. 10 years ago, I hated my father for abandoning us. Today, I am grateful he came back. Why? Someone asked. Because I learned that it doesn't matter how many times you fall. What matters is how many times you get back up. Patricia took the microphone. And I learned that forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's remembering without pain. Walter also wanted to speak. I learned that family is like a tree root. It can stay hidden underground for years, but it never dies. Mildred approached the microphone. And I learned that sometimes we are instruments in God's hands to change people's lives, without even knowing it. The party continued late into the night with music, dancing, and a lot of emotion. When everyone had left, the family gathered one last time on the porch. 10 years, Dorothy murmured. It feels like an eternity, Harold said. And it feels like it was yesterday, Raymond added. You know what amazes me the most? Patricia asked. What? Walter replied. How we managed to turn so much pain into so much joy. It wasn't easy, Dorothy recalled. It wasn't. But it was worth it, Harold said. And now? Raymond asked. What do we do with the next 10 years? We continue, Dorothy answered simply. Continue what? Walter asked. We continue loving, we continue forgiving, we continue helping, we continue being a family. Even when it's hard, Patricia asked. Especially when it's hard, Dorothy replied. Promise? Raymond asked, extending his hand. Promise, they all answered, placing their hands on top of each other's. That night, Dorothy and Harold talked until dawn. Dorothy, if you had known from the beginning everything we would go through, would you still have married me? Is that an easy or a difficult question? Difficult. Then I'll give you an easy answer. Yes. Why easy? Because I don't need to think to answer. I would marry you 1,000 times. Even knowing about the lies. Knowing that the lies would turn into truths. Even knowing about the pain. Knowing that the pain would turn into growth. Even knowing about the hard years. Knowing that the hard years would make us stronger. Harold kissed his wife. I love you, Dorothy. I love you too, Harold. I love you yesterday, today, and always. Yesterday? I love the man you were, even with all the mistakes. Today, I love the man you are with all your hard-earned wisdom. And always, I will love the man you will yet be with all the possibilities of the future. And if I make a mistake again, then we will work together to fix it. And if I doubt, then I will believe for both of us. And if I forget how much I love you, then I will remind you every day. Promise? Promise. 15 years after that cold day in the snow, the Green Mountain Inn had become a complex that included the hotel, the senior home, and a family therapy center. The Mitchell family was nationally known for their family reconciliation work. "Mom, Dorothy, we have a proposal," Raymond announced during breakfast. "What proposal?" "A university wants to create a chair of family therapy and reconciliation and has invited you to be the professor." "Me? But I don't have formal academic training." "You have life training, which is more important." "But teaching at the university, it's a way to reach even more families," Patricia argued. "And to train professionals who will multiply our work," Walter added. Dorothy became thoughtful. "Harold, what do you think?" "I think it's an opportunity to spread even more seeds of love and reconciliation. But I would have to travel, be away from you all." "Mom, Dorothy, we're not children who need you here all the time anymore," Raymond said. "We are adults who are proud to have a mother who makes a difference in the world. Besides, it would only be 2 days a week," Patricia reminded her. "And we can manage the inn perfectly," Walter assured. Dorothy decided to accept the invitation. Her university classes became famous for their practical and emotional approach to the subject. "Professor Dorothy, what's the first thing a family should do to reconcile?" asked a student during a class. "Admit that they want to reconcile." "How so?" "Many families say they want peace, but they keep feeding conflicts. Reconciliation begins with the sincere decision to want peace. And if only one person wants to reconcile, then that person starts the process. Sometimes an act of love awakens love in others. And if it doesn't awaken, then you at least lived according to your values, and that is already a victory." "Professor, do you think every family can be saved?" "I think every family can try to be saved. They don't always succeed, but they can try." "What's the difference?" "The difference is that trying is already transformative. Even when we can't change the other person, we transform ourselves in the process." During one of the classes, a student asked a question that deeply touched Dorothy. "Professor, do you regret any decision you made with your family?" "I regret taking so long to forgive completely." "How so?" "For a long time, I forgave with my head, but my heart still held resentment. True forgiveness is when heart and mind are aligned." "And how did you manage to align them?" "By understanding that holding on to resentment hurts the one who holds it more than the one who caused the hurt." "You didn't feel anger." "I did. A lot of anger." "How did you overcome it?" "By transforming anger into energy to build something better." "Was it difficult?" "It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, and the most liberating." Dorothy's students often visited the Green Mountain Inn to see in practice how a reconciled family functioned. "Professor Dorothy, do you really never fight anymore?" asked a student during a visit. "We do fight," Raymond answered, laughing. "We're family, not saints." "But how do you resolve the fights?" "By talking," Patricia answered. "And if talking doesn't resolve it?" "We talk more," Walter said. "And if it still doesn't resolve?" "We ask for help," Harold answered. "Sometimes we need an outside perspective." "From whom?" "From each other. From Mom Dorothy, from friends, from professionals. We're not ashamed to ask for help." "Why?" "Because we learned that asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness," Dorothy explained. One of the students became emotional during the visit. "Professor Dorothy, can I tell you something personal?" "Of course." "I haven't spoken to my father in 5 years. "Why?" "Out of pride. We're both too proud to take the first step." "And what can you do?" "Take the first step? And if he rejects it? At least I'll know I tried. And if he accepts? Maybe I'll get my father back." "Is it worth the risk?" The student thought for a moment. It is. It definitely is. 6 months later, the student returned to tell that she had reconciled with her father. How was it? Dorothy asked. Difficult at first. He was hurt too. And then? Then we talked for hours. We cried together. We apologized to each other. And now? Now we are closer than we ever were. What made the difference? Humility. We both lowered our guards and admitted our mistakes. Stories like this multiplied. Dorothy received letters from former students telling about family reconciliations inspired by her classes. 20 years after that day in the snow, Dorothy and Harold had become grandparents at heart. Raymond had married and had 2 children. Patricia had adopted a child. Walter had started a family with a partner he met at the inn. Grandma Dorothy, tell the story of how you and Grandpa Harold met, asked Jennifer, Raymond's daughter. It's a long story, my dear. I like long stories. All right. Once upon a time there was an elderly couple who lived in a tent in the snow. Really? Really? And were they poor? They were poor in money but rich in love. And then? Then they discovered that sometimes the greatest blessings come disguised as problems. How so? They went through many difficulties, but those difficulties made them better people. And they lived happily ever after. They live happily today. Happily ever after, we take one day at a time. The wise answer from Dorothy enchanted not only her granddaughter, but all the adults who were listening. Grandpa Harold, do you regret lying to Grandma? Asked David, Patricia's son. I regret it very much, my little grandson. And did you forgive him, Grandma Dorothy? I forgave him completely. How do you forgive? You remember that the person you love is more important than what hurt you. And if the person does it again? Then you forgive again. Always. Always. Because forgiveness isn't about deserving. It's about loving. The children absorbed these lessons naturally, growing up in an environment where forgiveness and reconciliation were natural values. Uncle Walter, why did Grandpa leave when you were kids? Asked Susan, Patricia's adopted daughter. Because he was scared and sad. Scared of what? Scared of not being able to take care of us properly. And why did you forgive him? Because we understood that people do wrong things when they are in pain. And were you in pain too? We were. A lot of pain. And how did the pain stop? When we chose to love instead of hate. Was it hard? It was very hard. But it was the best decision we ever made. During a family gathering for Dorothy's birthday, the children put on a special presentation. Grandma, we wrote a song about our family, announced Jennifer. How beautiful. Shall we listen? The children sang a simple but moving song about a family that got lost and found each other again. Once upon a time there was a family that got lost in the dark, but love didn't give up and brought light to the heart. Now we are all together, united by the same faith. That family is forever, and love never fades away. The song deeply moved all the adults. Did you compose this by yourselves? Dorothy asked, with tears in her eyes. Uncle Raymond helped with the melody, David confessed. And Aunt Patricia helped with some words, Susan added. But the story is ours, Jennifer said proudly. It's the story of our family, David agreed. Of the family that never gives up, Susan finished. Dorothy looked at Harold, who was also emotional. Did you hear that? She whispered. I heard. Our children grew up understanding that family is about never giving up. We did it, Dorothy said. Did what? Created a legacy of love. A legacy that will pass to their children and their children's children, and that will inspire other families to never give up. Dorothy, do you realize what we've done? What have we done? We turned our pain into hope for generations to come. And does that make you happy? It makes me fulfilled. It makes me feel my life had purpose. What purpose? To show that true love overcomes any obstacle. That night, after everyone had left, Dorothy and Harold sat on the porch as they had for 20 years. Dorothy, if we had a time machine, what would you change? Nothing. Really nothing. Really nothing. Every mistake, every pain, every difficulty brought us here. And here is perfect. even knowing we could have avoided so much suffering. The suffering was part of the growth. Without it, maybe we wouldn't value the happiness we have today so much. Do you really believe that? I believe it deeply. Our story is beautiful, not because it was easy, but because it was real. Real how? Real like people who make mistakes, suffer, struggle, grow, and learn to truly love. And what is truly loving? It's choosing to stay even when it would be easier to leave. It's choosing to forgive even when it would be easier to hold a grudge. It's choosing to build even when it would be easier to destroy. And do you think we managed to teach that to the children? I think we managed to show them. Now they need to live their own journeys. And if they make the same mistakes we did, then we'll be here to help them get back up. And if they make different mistakes, we'll be here too. And if they don't need us, then we'll know we did a good job. Harold laughed at his wife's answer. Dorothy, you always know what to say. Not always, but I learned to listen to my heart. And what does your heart say now? It says we are blessed. Why? Because we found the true meaning of family. What is it? That family isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. It's about being available. It's about never giving up. 25 years after that day in the snow, Dorothy and Harold were celebrating the golden anniversary of their reunion. The party brought together over 1,000 people, including families from all over the country who had been impacted by their story. Dear friends, Dorothy said in her speech, when Harold and I were in that tent in the snow, we never imagined our personal story would become an inspiration for so many people. But we discovered something important, Harold continued. What? The audience asked in unison. That no love story is too small to make a difference, and that no family is too lost to be saved, Dorothy added. How can we be sure of that? Someone shouted from the audience. Because we are here today, Raymond answered. Because our family, which was shattered, is here, whole, happy, united. Because our children grew up believing love conquers all, Patricia said, pointing to the children. Because our pain turned into the joy of hundreds of families, Walter added. And because true love has no expiration date, Mildred concluded, still actively participating in the family celebrations at 90 years old. During the party, a journalist asked for an exclusive interview. Mrs. Dorothy, after 25 years, what is the secret to keeping a family together? There is no secret. There is daily work. What kind of work? The work of choosing to love every day, the work of forgiving every day, the work of being present every day. And when it's difficult, especially when it's difficult, did you ever think about giving up? I did, many times, but I learned that the hardest moments are exactly the moments when we most need to stay. Why? Because it's in the difficult moments that true love grows stronger. And for families who are going through difficulties now, don't give up. Seek help. Talk. Forgive. Fight. But don't give up. Even when it seems impossible? Especially when it seems impossible. Because sometimes the impossible is just one conversation away. The interview was seen by millions of people and sparked a new wave of family reconciliations across the country. Mom, Dorothy, do you realize the reach of our story? Walter asked a few days later. I do. And I feel responsible. Responsible for what? For continuing to live up to the example we've become. Do you think we've managed it? I think we try every day, and that's what matters. Trying sincerely, because perfection doesn't exist, but sincerity does. At 85, Dorothy decided to write her memoirs. The book, From the Cold of the Snow to the Warmth of Family, became a national bestseller. Grandma, why did you write the book? Asked Jennifer, now a teenager. So other people know it's never too late to start over. And does it work? Every week we get letters from people who reconciled with their families after reading the book. How many letters? Thousands. Wow, that means you helped thousands of families. It means our story helped. But the ones who did the hard work were those families. What work? The work of forgiving, of talking, of starting over. Grandma, can I ask a difficult question? You may. Are you afraid to leave and let Grandpa be alone? The granddaughter's question touched Dorothy deeply. I am. But it's not a paralyzing fear. What do you mean? It's a fear that motivates me to cherish every day we have together. And if you leave first, then he will know he was deeply loved, and he will continue to be loved through all of you. And if he leaves first, then I will continue honoring our love through the work we do here. You wouldn't be sad? I would be devastated, but I wouldn't be empty, because the love we built will remain alive in our family. The conversation with her granddaughter made Dorothy reflect on mortality and legacy. Harold, do you think about leaving? She asked her husband that night. I do, and you? I do too, but without fear. Without fear? Without fear. Because I know we have lived a full life. Do you regret anything? I regret taking so long to find you, but we found each other at the right time. How do you know? Because if we had met when we were younger, perhaps we wouldn't have had the wisdom necessary to build what we built. Do you think our love is special? I think our persistence is special. What do you mean? Many people love. Few persist in love when it is tested. And did we persist? We persisted through lies, hurts, difficulties, years of separation. If that isn't persistence, I don't know what is. On the 30th anniversary of the Green Mountain Inn, Dorothy and Harold received a national tribute for their services to the cause of family reconciliation. Mr. President, Dorothy said during the ceremony, we accept this honor on behalf of all families who choose not to give up. And we dedicate this honor to the memory of Evelyn, first wife and mother of my children, who taught us that true love transcends life, Harold added, moving everyone. How do you manage to honor both wives without creating conflict? A reporter asked. By learning that the human heart has an infinite capacity to love, there is no competition between loves when they are genuine. And you, Mrs. Dorothy, how do you feel being compared to his first wife? I don't feel compared. I feel honored to be part of the continuation of a love story. What do you mean? Evelyn planted seeds of love in Harold's children. I watered those seeds. Together, even without ever knowing each other, we created a beautiful family. Dorothy's answer received a standing ovation from the entire audience. During the ceremony, Harold's children gave a joint speech. We want to talk about our mother, Dorothy, Raymond began. Who taught us that a mother isn't just the one who gives birth, Patricia continued, but the one who chooses to love unconditionally, Walter completed. We want to talk about our father, Raymond resumed, who taught us that a true man isn't one who never makes mistakes, Patricia went on, but one who has the courage to recognize his mistakes and change them, Walter concluded. And we want to talk about our family, the three said together, which taught us that family isn't about being perfect, but about being present. It's not about never falling, but about always getting back up. It's not about having no problems, but about solving them together. The speech moved Dorothy and Harold deeply. After the ceremony, the family gathered for an intimate dinner. Mom, Dorothy, may I make a toast? Raymond asked. Of course. To the woman who transformed our broken family into a family that fixes other broken families. To the man who had the courage to return and fight for the family he had lost, Patricia continued. To the family that proved true love overcomes time, distance, and hurt, Walter added. To the life that taught us it's never too late to start over, Mildred said, still vibrant at 95. And to the future we will build together, passing these values on to the next generations, said Jennifer, now a young adult. Cheers! Everyone shouted together. That night, Dorothy and Harold talked about the special day. Dorothy, did you ever imagine we'd get this far, when we were in that tent in the snow? I didn't imagine it. But I hoped. Hoped for what? That our story wouldn't end there, that there would be more chapters to write. And were we right to hope? We were right not to give up. What was the hardest moment? When you told me about your first family. I felt my world crumble. And what was the most beautiful moment? When I saw you hug Raymond for the first time in 40 years. Why? Because in that hug I saw that family love is stronger than any hurt. And now, how do you feel? I feel our story was worth every tear, every difficulty, every moment of pain. Why? Because it resulted in love multiplied. We love each other. Our children love us. Our grandchildren love us. Hundreds of families have been helped by our example. Does that make you happy? It makes me complete. At 90 years old, Dorothy still taught at the university. Her last lecture was on the legacy of family love. Professor Dorothy, what is the most important thing you've learned in 90 years of life? Asked a student. That love is not a feeling, it's a decision. How so? Feelings come and go. A decision remains. When you decide to love someone, you love them regardless of what you feel in the moment. And if the person doesn't deserve love, or all people deserve love. Some don't know how to receive it. Others don't know how to return it, but everyone deserves it. Even people who hurt others, especially people who hurt others. Because those who hurt are the ones who most need to learn to love and be loved. You never gave up on anyone? I wanted to give up many times, but I learned that giving up on someone is giving up on myself. How so? Because when I give up on loving, I diminish my own capacity to be happy. Professor, what advice would you give to families in crisis? Don't give up. Seek help. Talk truthfully. Forgive sincerely. Fight courageously. But never, ever give up. Even when it seems impossible? Especially when it seems impossible. Because the greatest miracles happen when people refuse to accept that something is impossible. Dorothy's last lecture was applauded for 15 minutes straight. Students, professors, and university staff stood up to honor the woman who had dedicated decades to teaching about love and reconciliation. That same year, Dorothy and Harold decided to take a special trip. They went to visit the exact spot where they had camped in the snow 30 years before. Harold, do you remember this place? How could I forget? It was here our lives changed forever. It seems like another world now. Because we are different people now. Better? Much better. Wiser, more loving, more complete. And if we could give advice to that desperate couple from 30 years ago, what advice would it be? That the pain you're feeling now will turn into the greatest joy of your lives. Would they believe it? Perhaps not, but they would keep trying, and that's what matters. They were silent for a moment, each immersed in their own memories. Dorothy, thank you. For what? For not giving up on us when it would have been very easy to give up. Thank you for teaching me that true love is about persisting. And now, where do we go? Home. To our family. To the place where we built our paradise. Our paradise? Yes. Because I've discovered that paradise isn't a perfect place. It's a place where we are perfectly loved. During the trip back, they stopped for lunch at a roadside restaurant. Look there! Dorothy pointed to a sign on the wall. It was a photo of them at the inn's opening, with the phrase, "Family, where life begins and love never ends." Our photo is in a roadside restaurant, Harold asked, surprised. It seems our story has reached places we never imagined, Dorothy replied, moved. The waiter approached the table. You are the couple in the photo, aren't you? We are, Dorothy confirmed. Wow, you are famous around here. Your story inspired my family to reconcile. How so? My father and my grandfather had been fighting for years. After learning about your story, they decided to talk. Now they are best friends. How wonderful to hear that, Dorothy exclaimed. Could you give me an autograph? It's for my daughter. She is doing a school project about families that overcame hardships. Dorothy signed a photo with the phrase, "For your daughter with love. Never give up on your family, Dorothy Mitchell." Harold, do you realize this? She said when the waiter walked away. What? Our simple story of a couple who reunited is inspiring people we don't even know in places we didn't know existed. It's unbelievable. It's the power of love multiplied. How so? When we love truly, that love spreads in ever-widening circles, touching people we never imagined. And does that make you happy? It makes me fulfilled. I feel our life had a purpose greater than ourselves. What purpose? To show that love conquers all, always. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this story and where you're watching from. If you have something to share with us, leave it in the comments with sincere words. Do you believe Dorothy made the right decision by forgiving Harold and fighting for the family? We would love to read your opinion. Thank you so much for your company. Don't forget to leave your like and especially subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories.